New York's recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you to my colleague. I was here earlier today, and my colleagues on the other side of the aisle, and I heard it again repeated just moments ago, talking a lot about what this bill isn't. I'm very familiar what this bill is not. It isn't a fix to IDEA, although children like my own living with disabilities would love for us to effectively engage in that. This isn't a bill about ensuring vocational training, yet we want vocational training. This isn't a bill about other aspects of education. It's about one basic thing. Our schools are not to be used for shelters. And we wouldn't be here today, nor would I be compelled to present this legislation were it not for a failure of this federal government. By the way, I would acknowledge for generations, but this administration not taking seriously the crisis at our border, a true humanitarian crisis. Earlier today, I heard my colleagues on the other side of the aisle argue that governors across this country shouldn't be in the business of moving undocumented immigrants from one state to another state. And while I might share, and I do from a very compassionate perspective, I spent 12 years as a local elected leader responsible for finding housing and shelter for unaccompanied minors. It was my job to take those individuals seeking asylum and find them locations all in accordance with federal law. Shelters established under federal law for the purposes of caring for people. We would not be here today, nor would this bill be even necessary, were it not for the reality that the city of New York made a choice. The city of New York made a decision to be a welcoming sanctuary city, and by definition, welcomed individuals from around the world, irrespective of their status. And then when that happened, when they were confronted with this very real crisis that the White House and the federal government has ignored, the city of New York chose to declare that schools within New York City could be used as shelters. In one elementary school in Brooklyn, the gymnasium was being prepared to house migrants during the school year while children were in class. And now this led to after-school activities, including sports, to be canceled. Additionally, in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul announced the plans to house as many as 1,500 migrants at 3 different state universities in Albany, Buffalo, and Stony Brook. We wouldn't be in this position if the city of New York worked effectively to address the crisis within the city. Now, additionally, I heard earlier today that governors from other states should have simply asked the president for financial help. Well, the same is true in the case of Mayor Eric Adams. He, in fact, did ask the president and the federal government for emergency action and additional financial assistance to contain the crisis within the city of New York and not export it to other parts of the state. And he was met with deafening silence. This is a crisis of significance, and I truly respect this desire to be a compassionate people. But it is not compassionate. It is not compassionate to displace school children. It is not compassionate to close down schools and convert them into shelters. Earlier today, I was told that never would happen while students were there. Well, schools during the summer months and entering into fall all across this country are used as centers of community in some of the most vulnerable neighborhoods in America. Gymnasium used for after school and summer activities, athletics. Cafeterias used for nutrition and school lunches and breakfast, all there to meet the needs of needy families. And for children like my own, schools across this country in the summer months are used to provide therapies and services to those with intellectual, physical, and developmental disabilities. I understand what this bill is not. And it is not, based on my 30 years of experience in public office, it is not meant to be cruel to anyone. There are families and neighborhoods and parents and single moms and dads in urban centers all across this country who just want the school used for their children. And they want their government to take responsibility for their actions, whether it's a city that welcomes people from around the world or the federal government responsible for containing and addressing this humanitarian crisis where it begins at our borders. And so, like all the other families across this country, I simply ask that Congress state very clearly, this isn't about defunding anyone. This is about making clear that schools are for a single purpose, centers of community, education and opportunity for our neighbors. They are not shelters. That's what this bill affirms, a very basic sentiment, and it is one that I confront, no matter how many words others try to put in our mouths. I confront from a very compassionate perspective. Our kids have already lost too much, and schools should be used for the purposes of educating and empowering kids in our neighborhoods. And with that, I yield back.
The gentleman yields. The gentlewoman from North Carolina reserves.